Hey everyone, Cynics here, and I'm back to exploring the exciting DeviantArt pages of our wonderful viewers. So, first up we have Howie, who you may notice from previous videos is always asking questions and eager to learn about different things, and he's also doing his 100 faces in 100 days thing, which was mentioned before. But he was the first to post to DeviantArt, so I figured I'd just explore his. And plus, he's at a stage where he seems to be just about close to getting things right. Maybe he could use a little help here and there, but he's definitely making good progress and all that good stuff. And I'm staring at this knee avatar over here because it's distracting me. And I actually used to be a Jonan Vasquez fan way back when. But anyway, let me just hop into his gallery now. And here we go. Let's just jump into this one because this is the most noticeable thing I'm seeing. It's an environment. Let's see if I can get it better in frame. Oh, that's going to be the best I could do with this resolution. So it looks like we have a scene here with a ship that's crashed, and there's fire and smoke and stuff like that, and plants over here. So it's interesting. It's definitely trying to tell a story. There's some artistic things to note. It looks like you tried to put in some depth. You can tell these buildings back here are kind of bluish to blend in with the atmosphere a little bit. But there's still a lot of contrast going on. You can see like right in here and stuff, like this value and this value are obviously really far apart. So there's a lot of contrast that makes this have about the same amount of contrast as the stuff up here, maybe between this and this, or stuff in here. It's about the same as these. So that kind of takes away from the depth and makes it look a bit more flat than you would like it to look. And maybe you could have pushed this stuff back in the atmosphere even farther. Or maybe not have had those white clouds there. I don't know. No, I would say actually just push these back farther into the atmosphere. So you do a couple smart things. This design is not the greatest, but you repeated it and made it smaller, which is always a good idea because it shows depth, and kind of that repetition is always a good idea just to kind of add more to the scene with very little effort and give yourself a lot more depth and stuff. And there's some atmosphere in front of this one, so good stuff going on there. Okay, here another instance of this stuff being flattened is you can see this smoke here. It's pretty much the same color as the smoke here. In fact, I think it is the same color, the same oranges and blacks. And obviously this, I would say it's meant to be, judging from some of the stuff going on, this is meant to be miles in the distance. So the smoke is actually going to be pushed into atmosphere just as well as everything else. So the smoke should be pushed back. And stuff like that. So if you just look at it, just the right side of the screen, you'll see this smoke, and it'll all look like it's on the same plane, the same viewing plane, distance-wise from the viewer. Some other stuff to look out for. There's obviously a lot of saturation, really bright colors going on the left side of the screen. I'd just watch out for doing such bright saturation kind of in the front, because it really draws your eye in, and it kind of makes this one of the focal points, when I'm guessing this should be the main focal point. So you probably have your read 1, which would be right here, and then maybe your read 2, which is maybe these ships flying into this area and stuff like that. But this trees, they really kind of draw your eye and take some of your focus away. There's some stuff over here with the foreground, which is nice and black. Although here, let me zoom over a little. I'll just move the whole screen over. So you can see there's some stuff over here that has silhouette, and that's obviously foreground elements. They're darker than everything else, so that's a good idea. The direction, though, it kind of leads you off the screen. I don't know, the direction of these angles, it doesn't really go with anything. So one thing to watch for is like the direction you place stuff at. You might want to like find a way to bring it into the focal point instead of kind of away from it. Just basic stuff like that. I am not the best at environments and stuff like that, so I'm just trying to give basic tips. Some rendering stuff with the water and whatnot. Some of the rendering stuff is nice. It gets a bit blocky at times with certain things, but that's an okay style. There's parts that are kind of, yeah, it's some stuff with this water and stuff. I feel like the blah blah blah. I guess this is crashed. Okay, this is sideways, so I'm viewing the top of a boat, and I think it's supposed to be crashed into the water, but the way the water, like, and the coastline meet with this, it kind of makes it look weird, like this is, I don't know, there's something strange where I can't quite tell what's going on, so just readability wise there's some issues. But once again, you know who's actually really good for environments is if you go to youtube.com/FZD School. That's FZD School. That's Feng Zui. Oh wait, I don't even know how to say his name. Feng Zhu? Feng. No, it's Feng. Feng Zhu. I think that's right. Feng Zhu. He does really good YouTube videos, and he's actually the first person I ever saw do a commentated art video, and that was way back when I was just starting out. I bought his DVD, and that was really great. It was the first DVD I think they had released. And anyway, yep, check out that YouTube if you want to get good at environments, and he'll go over a lot of that stuff about kind of focal points and reads and pushing stuff into distance. Anyway, that's enough about that one single piece. Let's see what else we got. Here's some faces. The black and white one. Pick a color one. Let's go with this one. So, let's see. There's some good stuff going on with the color variations. I've seen you do a lot of reference work on the blog, just from what I remember, and I could tell this one's not from reference just because your reference stuff is actually really solid, and it's really photorealistic in a simplified way, and you're very good with that. But this, once again, I can tell you kind of go overboard with some of the curves of the faces and the shapes of the face. This is actually an improvement over some of the ones I've seen, but you're still making the foreheads really small. And I don't know why. The hairline comes down really low, and I just try to make a bigger forehead. Look at this guy. He has a huge forehead. That's kind of interesting. But no, some of the stuff, the face is kind of small. The facial features, I noticed this in a lot of your stuff. The eyes get kind of big, and the nose and the mouth. It's just like this facial features always seem to be taking up a lot of space. But this one's actually not as bad as some of the other ones. So you got some hue variation. You brought in the desaturated tones to give them some stubbly looks. So some of the strokes, they seem to be facing inward toward the mouth, which can work, although they kind of imply this dehydrated kind of look when you have those kind of lines bringing in toward the lips, like the lips should be going inward because these lines are facing this way, and stuff like that. Now you made some interesting choices with the background in that it's just white in these light areas, and there's the dark area up here. And usually you want to find ways to bring out, using your background, to bring out the darker parts, maybe contrast them with some lighter areas, and contrast your lighter areas with some darker backgrounds, just to make the whole face read more like it's standing out. Obviously that's not an exact rule, it's just a basic idea if you're messing around with certain things. You could have tried bringing in some secondary light too, maybe. Stuff like that, just to kind of make it more interesting. But yeah, just like the general skull size and stuff like that, I feel like there needs to be more forehead and top of the skull. It's kind of hard to tell where the top of the skull actually is because you hit it with this weird hairdo stuff. But let's jump into another piece real fast. Okay, so this one's actually a lot closer, and I'm guessing this isn't a photo reference either. But this is a lot closer to what I would call normal proportions versus, say, let me just jump over real fast, and then I'll jump back to this fascia over here, which has some interesting color stuff going on, but you can see it's, once again, a very small kind of skull, and kind of swooped back. Obviously it should be more flat, or the forehead's generally more, sticks out a bit more. You don't have to worry about sinking it back so far into the head. Kind of makes a Cro-Magnon. I don't know what the right word is. It reminds me of like the old Paleolithic skeletons or something. Um, but no, I'm just using words that I don't even know what they mean. But yeah, once again, the facial feature with the eyes and stuff, it's really big for the skull and the nose and the mouth. And I feel like there should be more chin and just focus on maybe simplifying things into more of a simple, like, flat shape with the jaw and whatnot being more pronounced. But at least you're experimenting with hues and colors and stuff, and that's always good. You can see, like, I like the hues here. Obviously, the main problem with this one is the lack of contrast in color. I mean, in value depth. The color depth's pretty good. I like the different colors, but the value depth in terms of bringing in some really dark tones for maybe the eyebrows and stuff, this looks very washed out and it just lacks those contrast changes you might want. But I like the colors. Obviously, they're going good. The eye could have been more of an eye-ish color. More of an eye-ish color. The ear shape, maybe you can work on that a little bit because well, it's all right. I'll say that. But yeah, I mean, this one is better than the faces I saw you doing without reference and the previous stuff I saw. So you're definitely making good improvements. Just push your values a bit more. Don't be afraid. Obviously, this one's very dark and this one's very light. And if you could find a balance in bringing in light values with also having some good contrast. I know it's difficult to do. Like, you bring in those dark tones and then you have to make sure everything's correct because they make everything stand out a lot more, and you can't get away with stuff that you might be able to get away with otherwise. So let's see, we got some good studies here. This is probably a really good study that's very useful because it deals with a lot of interesting lighting stuff with clear plastics and these reflections and stuff. And you get some like bright orange right out here on the front to show some reflections, and there's a lot of good stuff going on. This is obviously a still life from, I don't know if it's from life or from a picture, but this seems like a very useful study, and you probably could get a lot out of it. I'm sure if everyone watching these videos did studies like this, they'd probably learn a lot. And it's always a good idea to do studies of things that have weird properties, such as a clear plastic or some bright colors and weird reflections and textures and stuff like that. Always try to find that stuff because that'll help you learn the most. So that's a good one. Let's see, what else do we got? Here's another face. I can just tell looking from it, it's got some of the same issues with the facial features being kind of big. Oops, why did that move on its own? And stuff like that, but you're bringing in some good colors, some good redness, greenness on the forehead. Probably don't need that. It can work in certain areas, but maybe your hue changes are kind of extreme with the greens and the reds. If you can make them more subtle, make them kind of drift into each other in different ways, that might help out. Let's see, I'd work on hair too. Hair's a bit strange. But let's see, I'm going to look at some of these thumbnails and try to figure out what's going on. So, okay, there's obviously a couple studies and these look great. So, from these thumbnails, if something looks great from a thumbnail, chances are it also looks great up close. But these kind of look interesting, so they caught my eye. This one looks like it might be like a pier. Okay, I kind of see a pier here over maybe a reflecting, like a pond. Maybe there's some lily pads and stuff. Like, that's kind of what I can see because it looks kind of reflective, and there might be some kind of structures alongside the sides of this pond area. It's like a swamp with trees in the background. Maybe some like interesting fantasy structure or something. But let's find out what it really is. Let's click on it. Okay, so... oh, I was actually off. Okay, so it looks like there's a kind of bridge structure here, and there's a lower walkway, but it's supposed to be metallic or something. Um, let's see. I feel like this composition definitely had promise from the thumbnail. Like, so there must be some good stuff going on with the composition. And there's some good stuff going on here with just kind of lighting effects, but it's kind of jumbled in the perspective once I get back here. Like, is this a walkway that goes up this way? Because I feel like the horizon should be, obviously, let's see, based on this, the horizon should be somewhere in here. Um, the character up here, it's always a good idea to put characters. Maybe you've been watching Feng Zhu's art tutorials. If not, you definitely should, but he talks about putting characters into art and stuff like that. I'd be careful with how much contrast I put on the character because it kind of makes it stand out maybe more than it should when you have the bright yellows and blacks. Um, so let's see. I'm guessing the lighting scheme is somewhere over here. And you did a good job of kind of darkening out the edges. But yeah, I feel like looking at the thumbnail, this piece could have been a lot better if it was like this more reflected water. And I think the reason I thought it might have been reflected water was because you have such strong like contrasts going on, and it kind of makes it look like something you would see on water with this being reflected or something instead of down here. And there's kind of some trouble with depth when you get into this, and that some of these values over here, which are obviously in the closer to foreground, are the same as the ones here, and even kind of the same as the ones that you're using back here. So that kind of takes away some of the depth of a piece. So maybe you could flood this with water or something. I'm still obsessing over this being like a swampy area or lake or something. And I actually thought this thing was like a pier above. I guess I didn't notice that it was actually railing and it came down to like a bridge. I thought the level was like more up here. So yeah, it's just some interesting stuff to note. Let's see what the other one is. Let's see if I could guess this one correctly. So, I kind of see something like a wall here, maybe some kind of structure here that's made of wood, and there's some wood planks coming off the top. So there's kind of this wooden structure right here that's kind of very ornate and interesting, and then there's another structure here that goes back into the distance, into this little archway. Maybe there's some kind of, I don't know, some kind of small shed thing, but it kind of looks like it's out of perspective because it looks like there's something like a fence back here. And that kind of makes it look, if I just kind of ignore this area and just look over here, it makes it look like there's kind of a scale here that doesn't match with what I think I'm seeing on this side. So let's jump in and see what it actually is. This is kind of a fun game I'm playing, trying to guess what they're... I actually still can't tell what this is over here. It's just kind of wild shapes, and there's a lot of orange. But it doesn't read any better on this side, at least this stuff over here. And it looks like this is actually trying to go back into the distance. I thought this was all one foreground piece because I think it uses all the same values, kind of. But it looks like it wants to go back into the distance, so... I don't know. Once again, there's just a few issues with stuff like this. I think this one I read is distance because it's slightly less detailed and slightly less dark in value than, say, this one and this one and this one. So there's some good stuff going on this side with the repetition and bringing stuff into depth. But this side I'm not quite sure what some of this stuff is going for. It seems like there's some clashing perspective and stuff like that. And yeah, once again, I'm just not sure what some of the stuff is supposed to be readability issues, but I feel like it's close, and there's some good texture stuff going on with this grassy kind of foliage and rusty old stuff. And you get that vibe, you pull that vibe off well, so that's kind of interesting. I think you might be using some, I don't know, I want to say there's some photo textures or something kind of thrown in randomly. For effect, and that's always a fun idea to try that Feng talks about a lot. So yeah, there's some interesting ideas going on. Once again, it's just a matter of maybe working with thumbnails and stuff and then figuring out what it looks like and then trying to go in based on a small design and figuring it out from there. Because I feel like this could all just take place in like a small backyard or park setting, and it's trying to be something else with like these weird kind of shapes and over here. But yeah, just something to think about. Whoop, whoop, whoop. So we got some more faces, heads. Let's see. Let me see what else. I don't want to go back too far because then you're just going back into your past, which may not reflect where you're currently at. There's some interesting stuff over here. It looks like you were getting pretty experimental with styles and different things like that. And there's some faces which are actually seem better than some of the faces you've been doing. I don't know. They seem more proportional. Maybe that's just because they're from the front. Some interesting styles and environments and stuff like that. Here's a good looking one. This one looks like it suffers from some of the same fate of using the same values. I want to guess it's trying to be varying distances, but I can't really tell. It's slightly too abstract, but it's close. Like, I'm close to seeing something in it with like all the red, like that could be flags and fabrics and things, but it's just like some of the repetition in values needs to have more depth and stuff like that. So, let's see. Jumping back to the first page, let me see if there's anything else that I could comment on real fast. Some interesting hues, some really strong saturations in some of your pieces overalls, which may be an okay thing, but sometimes it's kind of overwhelming, like here and here, and stuff like that. But you know, it's just something you experiment with and get more comfortable with. So what's this one? This one's actually a nice looking piece. It kind of has that feel of oh, who are the artists I'm thinking of? Both like Sparth or Barantieri or Vile, and those are kind of the three artists that I'm thinking of that kind of have a very like choppy style that's very sci-fi and interesting. So there's some good stuff going on here with like a dock and some stuff. You probably could have like maybe used a selection tool and like selected this foreground stuff and then used like some airbrushing to push this other stuff maybe back into the background more and done tricks like that, because once again your contrasting values are kind of the same in certain parts all throughout, and I'm just kind of reading what I can see based on what some of these shapes are, but not based on what the different value changes are. Except over here, they're obviously a lot darker, so this obviously tells me this is a more foreground area than over here, where the stuff's there's not any more blacks, but there are still some whites and stuff like that. So, just stuff like that with contrast. So, let's see, anything that deals with the whole body perspective. Not too bad. The arm kind of gets slightly lost in these baggy clothes and stuff. Quite an awkward pose here. But not too bad. Proportions seem decent enough and stuff like that. So once again, some of the skull things, maybe study some skulls. I don't know if that would be the best thing to help you. Watch some more Zoo videos to try to really push your things into depth and stuff like that, and hopefully this was a helpful video for not only you but all the people that might watch this, and maybe they have better ideas and they can give you tips and stuff. And check out your DeviantArt. Here's the name, it's Howie with a 3 on the end, so they can come by and you guys can talk it up and become friends with people, and who knows what might happen, but all that good stuff. So, I think that'll do it for this video, and thanks for watching.